Hello, hi everyone. Welcome to the first video on this YouTube channel. My name is Lelo Lois and I'm an industrial psychologist under supervised practice. Right, so I've been getting a lot of questions about, my journey. How did I get into masters? How did I secure an internship? All those kind of things. And I thought, let me just put all the answers in one video. So yeah, get your popcorn. This is gonna be a long one, but it is gonna be so worth it. All right then, let's get into it. So my journey of becoming an industrial organizational psychologist has been a long one, to say the least. So typically it takes you about 5 to 7 years until you acquire that registration with the Health Professions Council. But before you even get there, there's quite a number of things that you need to get through, and this is what we're going to be touching on today. First thing being your academic studies. So that will start in undergrad, typically with a 3-year degree. The options vary and I've got them up on screen, but I did a BCom general degree. And then at some point, I then gravitated towards industrial psychology, and that's what I then majored in. Now, why industrial psychology? Listen, at the time, I actually didn't have enough information for me to make the right decision. I had to study part-time because I did not have funding for full-time university, so I was studying and working. And industrial psychology just landed on my lap. It just felt like the right move for me because I was already in the corporate environment. I started out in the call center environment, and if anyone has worked in the call center, you know how much there is low motivation, disengagement, presenteeism, absenteeism, tardiness. All of those things are so common for that space. And I thought to myself, maybe I can be the change in a space like this. I study this, then I get to be the person on the other side, and that is essentially how I decided on industrial psychology. Fast forward to 5 years later, and yes, 5, because again, I was studying part-time through the University of South Africa. I then finally qualified, completed my undergraduate degree, and then I graduated in 2015. Now, I did not have a lot of information, and yeah, it could have been my fault. Actually, I need to take some accountability. But I also am very aware of the context in which I was making these decisions in. I was the first one in my immediate family to have been going to a traditional university. Secondly, my mom never finished school. So university was something very far-fetched for her. But also thirdly, I did this degree and my expectation was that as soon as I'm done with my 3-year degree, I'm a psychologist. Little did I know that I was only just scratching the surface. So you can imagine my horror and my shock when I graduate and I'm now looking for opportunities and nothing is coming up. It's like registered industrial psychologist, registered. And then I had to research and found out that no, ma'am, you still have a long journey to go. One of my regrets is, after I graduated 2015, I immediately applied to do my honors degree, and I was accepted to get into my honors program in 2016. And I think one of the things that I regret right now is in 2016, instead of doing my honors, I then dropped out. There's quite a lot of things that were going on in my life personally, and I thought I would not be able to manage this So I quit. And it is also in the same year where I got actually offered an opportunity to go intern in the rewards and employee benefit space. To me, it was like, this doesn't link, it doesn't align to my goal, and I turned that down because, again, not having enough information. Guys, industrial organizational psychology, it is so broad. There are so many ways that you can go. You can go into organizational development, organizational design. You can go into, human resources. You can get into employee benefits and rewards. You can get into talent management, coaching. The list goes on. And I think I'm just going to, again, drop the list here just so that you can see the different avenues. But again, at that time, because I didn't know any better, I turned down that opportunity. Fast forward to 2020, I'm now older, the prefrontal cortex is fully formed, and I'm like, no man, I'm not just going to give up. So there I was, I applied again for my honors and I got accepted, and I did my honors during COVID. In 2021, I was done with my honors. I couldn't graduate again because of COVID, but I did incredibly well in my honors year. I graduated cum laude. Now we are in 2021 and I'm thinking, 2022, I might want to get into masters. Let me just, be done with this journey. But of course, life happens. I had some health challenges, and as a result, I could not actually register or even apply to do my master's in that year. So what happened? I then found employment, kept myself busy. Then comes 2022, and I'm like, you know what? I am definitely applying no matter what. I kept my options open. I applied at 4 universities. I'm so hesitant about mentioning their names. I'll mention their names, but I'm not gonna mention what each university selection process looked like, right? So the 4 universities I applied at were UNISA, Stellenbosch, Wits, and UKZN. So those were the 4 places I applied at. And as I've mentioned, if you've been following me on TikTok, you would know this. I got accepted in all 4 of those universities. Right, so now this is masters. Okay, so I've applied. The application process is quite long. They ask you, and here I'm going to be quite general because again, different universities have a different way of doing things, and also bearing in mind this is my journey. This all happened 2022/2023. Well, actually not 2023. This all happened in 2022, so the processes then could have been different. I have spoken to a couple of people that have done it quite recently, and it sounds like things are more or less the same, but I don't want to own that. So just a disclaimer, this is my personal experience and these are my views, right? So the process is quite long and a bit tedious. From a document perspective, they look for all the necessary or the common documents, certified IDs, degrees, so your honors, your undergrad. And then they also ask for references. Again, this is not all of the universities. Of the 4 I mentioned, I believe 2 of them ask for references. And the references, there's like a questionnaire of some sort that the references need to complete. And they want the references to be the ones who reply to the administration using their email address that they've listed. So I think it's just a way for them to know that you really did give it to a reference and that somebody else other than yourself did it. because obviously if you did it yourself, it would be coming from your email address. So I found that was such a weird rule, but anyway, that's what it was. And then I also had to write a motivational letter. So before writing my motivational letter, I was on YouTube all the time. Remember, this is before ChatGPT. So I was on YouTube constantly reading about, what kind of motivational letters stand out, what's the best way to write your motivational letter, and so on and so on. And I think actually that could be something we talk about separately, how to stand out in your motivational letter. Yeah, I think I'll make a video about that, because I think that's also quite important. Remember, these people are meeting you through what you're saying before they get to even meet you. So it's important that you grab their attention. Then there was the screening process itself. So as I said, the different universities did things quite differently. The one university, all they asked for was my research proposal from my honors year, and that was that, and that was enough for them to accept me. The second university asked for my research proposal from my honors year, and then they also asked me to do an assessment of some sort. It's not a psychometric assessment per se. They were asking, I feel like it was a fairly easy sort of assessment that they asked me to complete, and following that I got offered a spot. And then the other university had a bit more of an intense sort of process, where on a Friday at 4 o'clock we were given a task to write a research proposal on psychological safety, and then we were told it would be due the following Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning. So essentially we just had the weekend to complete that. When I think about it, I think it was just their way to see that, the proposal that you had written before, is it really your work? Also to know that you can work under pressure, that you also know the general structure of research, because with a proposal there's like a sort of structure that you would need to follow. So I think they were just testing for those things. Following that submission, then we got called in to do an assessment center. My memory fails me now. I don't know if it was a half-day assessment center over 2 days, or just a half-day assessment center. I think it was just a half-day assessment center for 1 day. And then, so in the assessment center, there was a lot of group activity. I guess they were seeing how you engage with other people, whether you're collaborative, are you a natural leader, all those kind of things, which are of course very important in your master's year, because you do a lot of work in groups. And you also need to be able to advocate for your stance. Then following that, we had then the individual interviews. The questions that I can remember, and again, guys, this was 3 years ago now, they asked something around ethics. So I think it was a context around psychometric assessments, and what they were really trying to get to was an ethics question. Then they also asked me if I know what you're supposed to score in the board exams in order for you to pass. There was a question around HIV/AIDS, and there's that code of good practice when it comes to HIV/AIDS. So they asked something along those lines. And then they were asking personal questions, who am I? Why am I interested in this? Why do I think I'm a good fit? Will I cope under the pressure? And so on. And then interestingly, they also asked about my paper on psychological safety. So that means that they did read it. And they were just asking just some technical questions around it. I think, again, that was their way of really seeing whether or not I wrote the paper myself or if I had given it to somebody else. And that was it. And then University 4, at University 4, I had applied for coursework, and I had also applied for research. The coursework portion, they required me to do a psychometric assessment, and I was just like, not in the space for that. Literally after the other universities had accepted me and I had made it my decision, University 4 came back to accept me, which obviously was an easy decline because that one was research. So that's another thing that is important for you to understand, the difference between your master's degree by coursework and master's degree by research. If you want to follow the professional avenue where you are registered as an independent industrial psychologist, wow, the English is going now, as an industrial psychologist, then you must do by coursework, which means it's done, typically it's done over 2 years. I know some universities can do it over one, where they do both coursework and your research in 1 year, but more than often it's done over 2 years. So you'll do 1 year of coursework, and then your research is then, you know, whatever research you decided to do. There's different kinds of research. And then the important one is your 12-month internship, which has to be done with an accredited organization. By accredited, we mean it needs to be, I guess, signed off or approved by the Health Professions Council of South Africa. So there are other organizations where they already have that approval. So when you get an internship opportunity there, you don't need to submit any additional documents. Whereas with other organizations, you might need to submit a document that speaks to the fact that you're going to be doing your internship at that particular organization, and it's going to be classified as an unstructured internship. So these are other things that we're going to be talking about in this channel, where we can give more information about that, because I understand if you're a first-year student, this might sound quite foreign. It used to sound foreign to me too at this level, or at that level. Right, then you've done now your 12-month internship, you've submitted your research, you've done your coursework. Then the last step, which is where I am, is to prepare for your national board exams. So they are written 3 times a year. It's usually Feb, June, and October. So I didn't catch the Feb one because my marks were not out yet. My marks were literally released the day before they were writing the board exams, so I couldn't write then. I am going to be writing my board exams in June. So then once that's done, guys, it's a 10, 15, how long is the journey? It's a 10-year journey concluded. Wow. And that's that. So yeah, if you've liked this video, if you found it informative, please do like, subscribe, and share. And every time we have new content, we will also be sharing that with you. So yeah, just turn your notifications on. And that is it from me, my journey from A to, I'll say Y, because Z is still missing. But yeah, we are almost there, and I'm just super excited. And yeah, we're just going to speak more about this so that there is information that's available from a South African perspective. So yeah, thank you everybody.